Sorry to take away the peaceful music right as you were complimenting it. But, yeah. It's been a little while since we've done one of these. One of these. One of these campaign logs, one of these prep recaps. Like, not that long, I guess. It's been 2 weeks. We did, we missed 2 weeks of game on the recap, so now I have to, like, remember what happened 2 weeks ago, and I was just trying to write notes, and I was just staring at a page. And I was like, actually, this is kind of hard, so I'm just gonna try to, like, remember it as we go, and we'll see how that goes, you know? Hopefully it'll go pretty well. Also, I was gonna do it in here, but, I was gonna do it in Forge and Foundry, and then I hit login with Patreon, and it was like, nah. It was like, you can't log in right now. And then I tried to, like, log in with my email address and everything, and it's, like, not the same account, even though it's the same account. Like, without the Patreon information, it's just like, you don't really have access. So, this is what happens when you're working with beta software. So, it's standard. It's normal. To be expected. So, we go back to Roll20, which also I'm logged out of for some reason. Not clear on why I got bounced out there, but that's fine. Maybe I just can't sign into anything. Maybe I just... Okay, there we go. So let's talk. Let's talk about Salamander. And, you may remember, but did you actually expect it to happen? I don't remember the exact context on when I was talking about my expectations, but I'm just gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. You may remember that the party's first swing at Salamander did not go particularly well. Did not go particularly well. They got about a round into combat, and then Eve got a bite taken out of her side. And the party kind of retreated, went to full retreat. One of them surrendered, two of them jumped off the temple and ran away. And Eve was unconscious after getting nearly one shot. Technically, not quite one shot by the boss, but minions helped. So the next session opened up with a slightly awkward encounter where I, like, kind of threw not entirely ready content at Moto. had him had a conversation with a deity that might turn out not to be a deity, and that wasn't, like, fully fleshed out at the time, but I was like, I really want to throw in a side conversation with Moto. It's like something that that had been bouncing in my head already for a while, even if I didn't know exactly what the other character involved was going to be. I still wanted to throw it out there. And I stumbled through that conversation a little bit. Sometimes when I, like, feel something in the moment, and I'm like, this would be a cool time for this kind of, like, for a certain feel that I want. Sometimes I just jump in, and I don't execute it very well on my end. I'm not quite as smooth with it as I would like, and that was probably one of those times. And I don't really think there's a fix for that other than to just keep doing it, keep hitting the awkward until it's not awkward anymore, until I, like, get practiced in the zone of doing that. But yeah, I still think it was fine and at least somewhat interesting. So happy I did it. And then the rest of the campaign was kind of getting the group to group up again. The previous session had ended with a little cutscene of, like, the party's harpy allies arriving on the island, knocking off some goblin scouts, and finding a place to camp for the night, basically. But obviously the party didn't know that yet, so we had to get them together, and they're, So we kind of handled that by having kind of an alarm raised on the side of the island, the west side of the island where the harpies landed. They had made a comment about making some noise and making themselves easy to find, so they proceeded in doing that. Meanwhile, Ludwig and Sonus went off to find Eve and figure out where Eve was captured. And they were able to do that without too much trouble, kind of just back. They'd seen where the buildings where, like, kind of the military personnel were housed on the island, where the generals were. So it wasn't too too much trouble to make their way back there and like track where this like kind of armed guard was bringing Eve. And Eve, meanwhile, had a brief conversation with Ziva. Yeah, a mage under the employ of Brass, who would have been kind of like tasked with tracking them down and scouting them out, spying on them, basically, seeing how they did with Salamander. And obviously, the first attempt that was a resounding real bad. But Ziva owed the party one. Ziva was saved by the party in like the third session, I think, when the party was like investigating this mine for why is it important? But yeah, so Ziva was like, "All right, I'm letting you out. Here's your stuff. We're basically even now. Be careful what you do from this point on. And just honestly, I would leave this alone." And just let, like, Brass is on the way. He'll take care of it. You don't need to, like, risk your life to do this again. Which is not, obviously, something that Eve is going to stand for. Eve, wants that glory. Wants that glory to herself. So, from there, she met up with the party. Ludwig sent his companion down, his alchemical familiar down, to lead Eve back up to them. They grouped up. And, I think they somehow, sorry, this is where the 2 weeks ago comes in. They somehow caught sight that there was like an alarm going off, and that there was kind of a group of goblins and other folks heading out, basically a scouting party to figure out what was happening, why, what the noise was about on the west end of the island. Figure out, go reinforce the folks there. There was like a flare that went up, I think. Maybe? Shit. No. That's fine. So, party followed this first group out, and the first group was taken care of pretty easily by the Harpies, and then the party met up with them. After clearing out this reinforcement group, they met up with Keth, the Guardian of the North, the, like, Harpy in command, basically. Kind of the deity of wind there, and worked out kind of the current situation. I'm trying to remember the specifics of the conversation, but Rava was there. The Harpy that they met in Orlane was there, and there's some brief back and forth there. Mostly Rava did the talking, and then Keth kind of turned towards Sonus, the wind sorcerer in the party, and said, "You're right, Rava. He is of my blood." And proceeded to give him like one of her feathered gauntlets imbued with her power, which turns out to be a relic of wind, of the wind domain, giving him a couple of abilities and setting some stuff up there. And I've really wanted to bring the elemental stuff more into play for Sonus, so I was kind of happy for them to finally kind of meet up. Like, I had this in mind for a while, but then there was potential that they weren't going to meet up with the Harpies at all, because they were rushing in to, like, fight Salamander right away. So the fact that they got a chance to meet and the party got to interact with Keth was made me pretty happy. So yeah, from there they started to kind of like plan their attack, figure it out. And I guess the other thing I should mention, just forgot, just this entire line, this entire thread isn't there. To be fair, it wasn't a super thick thread, but Sonus had surrendered, had said, I'm just gonna work for you. If you keep Eve alive, if you let Eve live, I will work for you now. I will stay here with you, and we'll, figure out. I think the intent was basically to figure out a way to move forward for Salamander without, like, a way to work on Salamander and be like, maybe we can do this without killing all of Eden, Maybe there's a different way. You seem to have some gripes with the council, and we have some gripes with the council, so, like, let's work this out another way. I believe that was Sonus' intent. Oh, it is here, so you can correct me if I'm wildly off base, but that's kind of the impression I got. And he was not so much a prisoner as a guest, which makes the betrayal later a little unfortunate, but kind of finagled his way into getting an escort to, like, go down and into the rest of the island and leave the temple. And so he got down to the town. He also kind of saw that an alarm had been raised and that a cavalry was being grouped together and heading out in the general direction of the party, and basically convinced the escort he had that, you know, this might be brass. This might be brass attacking the island, and we should see that. Like, if it's brass, I can help you. I can help this. I can help slow him down. And rolled well on a check to convince his escort of that, and then they headed off. He said, "All right, fine. If I die to brass, I'm gonna haunt you, though." And then they departed, and they arrived just after this cavalry. After this cavalry got kind of shredded by the harpies in the party. The party lined up a couple of prepared actions when they saw that this group was approaching, and I kind of streamlined it a little bit. I didn't want it to be a big combat, although with what happened later on in the session, maybe I should have. We'll talk about that in a bit. But it comes down to like a hard to predict the future thing. But so at that point, I think that Sonus put his escort to sleep with kind of part of the remainder of this cavalry. I'm pretty sure the escort didn't die, but might have. I don't 100% remember. The future is ineffable. Correct. Effing ineffable future. So Sonus kind of walks out of the bushes, says, "Hi, everyone." Everyone's like, "What the?" Okay, hi, Sonus. I think Eve still at this point thought Sonus was dead. Not Gino the player, but Eve the character had not seen Sonus. Wasn't aware that he was alive. Kind of thought that she'd gotten Sonus killed. Solus. Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry. I almost never do that. Other people do it all the time. I almost never do that. Oh my god. That might be one of the first times. I'm sorry. My bad. Thought that Solus had gotten killed because of her brash decision making when fighting Salamander. Thought that she went down and then Solus went down after, because obviously she blacked out. She didn't know. He wasn't with the party, so, and I don't think the party knew either. So they were role playing some mourning there, some unsuredness. But yeah, then they were all together there with the harpies. Imagine dying to a salamander god. Imagine it. That's below Solus for sure. I agree. Not below Eve technically, necessarily. So party back together. They were talking to the harpies about like, hey, so should we prepare for round 2? What's the plan? I think when they saw the harpies, most of the party was like, yeah, let's get back into this. Let's do this. So Solus probably would have had some reservations about this, but unfortunately, Solus's player Moto was a little sick, feeling a little under the weather at the time, and I think this like kind of prevented Moto from playing out his resistance as much as he otherwise would have, because yeah, I don't think Solus was necessarily down for round 2, unnecessarily. He's a little less gung-ho about getting the glory of like killing off gods. That is definitely more Eve's shtick. But they all kind of decided, yeah, let's go for it. Why not? And so the plan was that they were just going to fly up under cover of darkness, and like the harpies were going to carry them to the top, and they were going to just re-engage Salamander. They were going to kind of form a surprise attack of sorts. Keth said, basically, I can give you some assistance. I can block out all of Salamander's forces and prevent them from interfering, so you can have the fight all to your own. And I think that's really all she said. I don't think she hinted at anything else, and said that her harpy forces could fight off the other guys while you take care of Salamander. So that was basically what ended up happening. They flew up the side, dropped everyone in front of Salamander. Keth put down this huge vortex, which you may remember. Oh, it's not even going to be there anymore. I just straight deleted it. It's gone. It's gone. That's fine. But yeah, threw down a vortex. There's Keth and the harpies, and a barbarian friend whose name escapes me. I did write it down. I do have it this time. So yeah, they dropped in here and got about one round of combat in. Saw all the same familiar mechanics, the cones of fire, the first portal opening up, everything like that. and then we kind of stopped there because it was getting late, and like I said, Moto wasn't feeling particularly good, so we were already like 15 minutes to the end point, I think. 20, 25, 15 minutes, somewhere in there. And I knew this was going to be a bit of a long combat, so I was like, let's... Fell asleep. I wasn't gonna bring that part up, but the viewers who were there, they know that. It got to Moto's turn, and I was like, all right, Moto. All right, Solus, go ahead. And then there was a brief silence, and I was like, Solus? And then I was like, oh, okay, let's go on to the next person's turn, and we'll go back to Solus. And the next person went, and then I was like, all right, Moto, Moto, you there? And then I was like, okay, we'll have Salamander make his turn, and Solus can just take 2 turns, and then we did all of his mechanics, all of his end of round mechanics, and then his like turn mechanics, and that's when Moto snapped back, and I was like, I think exactly what happened is that I was like, Moto? He was like, oh yeah, what do you need me to roll? And I was like, your turn? He was like, oh, did I just fall asleep? And I was like, you might have. So yeah, we called it there. And said, there's a big combat ahead of us anyway, we'll just pick it up next time. So that's what we did. What's I gonna say? Yes. If I had known that that's where we would have stopped, I probably would have made at least slightly more of a combat for like the goblins and the salamander forces down below. We'll get there. That's technically next session. We're in session 18, and session 19 is when you take your turn getting chomped. So we'll get there. So that was the end of session 18. Yeah, I just wanted to say that again. If I had known that was where the session was going to end, I would have had slightly more of a combat down below. They would have like cleared out those goblins, driven them away. It wouldn't have been a big deal. Still, it just would have been some dice to roll, probably, maybe with one tougher guy and some like archers to pick at them, and yeah, given that little bit right in the middle, because my intention was to get to the boss fight. But at least in the last 2 hours of the session, and we only got to it with about 45 minutes left, and the intro took a little while. So yeah, probably would have just padded with a little more combat early on. And then then we took a break for a week, and Comcast was like, "Fuck no, you're not gonna record an intro or not an intro, or a recap." I was like, "Okay, all right, very well, Comcast Commander, we'll move on." So we skipped the recap last week, and as Cam will not. Oh I was supposed to message Cam when I was switching over. Guys, don't. All right, I gotta message Cam. Hold on, 1 sec. Hold on. This is big my bad. Having trouble finding him. There he is. Okay. Okay. Cam has been informed. I gave Cam his personal notification that we have swapped to Pathfinder. Okay. All right.